Hi everyone, welcome to the first episode of Theory for Drummers. I'm your host Marty, and my job will be to take you through three basic concepts in today's episode. The first being staves, second being bars, and the third being beats. Let's get straight into it. Let's start off with staves. What is a stave, or what are staves? They're simply the 5 horizontal lines that you see on empty sheets of manuscript paper. We need staves in order to tell the reader which drum we're hitting. If we didn't have staves and we just had a blank white piece of paper and we tried to write down a musical idea, we could write down rhythms, but we couldn't tell people which drums to hit at which times. So for example, if I were to write something like this on a white piece of paper, I'm telling the reader to make 4 hits, but I'm not telling them which drums to hit when. It's not obvious by just looking at this notation. However, if I were to write something similar on the stave, it's now obvious what drum I need to hit when. I need to start off by hitting the kick drum, then I need to hit the snare drum, then I need to hit the kick drum again, and then I need to hit the snare drum. I know that because of the positioning of my notes on the stave. I've got my bottom space as the kick drum, and I've got my third space from the bottom as the snare drum. Because I know that, I can write this idea down on the stave and make it obvious to any other drummers that know that as well. If I didn't have the stave, there's no way for me to make that obvious. That's why the stave exists. Let's move on to the next concept. Bars. When we talk about bars, they're simply just the space in between these vertical lines on the stave. Now, these vertical lines are known as bar lines. And bars are simply the space that exists between the bar lines. So if we look at this example that I've got down here below, this is 3 bars of drum beats. Now, the reason I know it's 3 bars immediately is I've just had a look at my bar lines, and I've just counted all the spaces in between the bar lines. So there's 1 bar, there's another bar, and then there's a 3rd bar. We're not going to cover what these notations inside the bars mean in this video. We're just going to be able to recognize where the bars are and how many bars there are. So that is a bar. We'll talk about what a bar represents in a second, but before we do that, let's go on to beats. So what are beats? If you understand that bars are simply the space in between the bar lines, what you should understand is that beats are within each bar. And specifically for beginner drummers, I want you to think of this as a rule that always applies. There are 4 beats in 1 bar. Now, this isn't always true. When you get more advanced, you will learn that that's not always the case. But right now, just assume that there's always 4 beats in 1 bar. So the first quarter of the bar, as you can see here, this area is the area for the first beat. This area here, the second quarter, is the area for the second beat. And so on and so forth for the third and the 4th beat. That is the space in which you write down the notation for each beat. So if we look at our example down below again and just look at the first bar, I can already see that the first quarter of the bar, that's where the notation for the first beat exists. The second quarter is where the notation for the second beat exists. The third quarter is where the notation for the third beat exists. And the 4th quarter is where the notation for the 4th beat exists. Now, let's pause for a second. Let's take a step back. We've learned about what bars look like. We've learned about what beats look like or where they are within the bar. but we haven't really talked about what are beats and what are bars and how do they relate to music and drumming. So what I want you to do is I want you to relate beats and bars to something that I'm sure you already are familiar with, which is seconds and minutes. When you think about seconds and you think about minutes, all they are units of time, right? A second is a very small amount of time. A minute is a longer amount of time. Just like that, you can think of beats as a small amount of time and bars as a slightly longer amount of time. So for every 1 second, for every 60 seconds, there is 1 minute. Just like that, for every 4 beats, there is 1 bar. It's just a unit of time. Now, it's easy for you to understand seconds and minutes because they always mean the same thing, but beats and bars occupy different amounts of time depending on what song we're looking at. So if you're looking at a really slow song, you might have 1 beat being 1 second of time. If you look at a medium-paced song, you might have 1 beat only being half a second of time. And if you look at a really fast song, you might have 1 beat being a third of a second of time. So it really depends on the song. It's not a hard and fast rule that 1 beat is equal to 1 second, but for now you can think of 1 beat as 1 second, as it'll help you understand this concept. So if that's the case, then that means that 1 bar is simply 4 seconds of time. And all you're doing when you're reading sheet music is your eyes are traveling from the left side of the page. Let's say your eyes are looking at this part of the sheet music, and they're traveling over to the right side of the page. Now, if you have a situation where 1 beat is equal to 1 second of time, then that means that by the time your eyes go from the first bar line to the second bar line, exactly 4 seconds will have passed, or 4 beats will have passed. When you go from the second bar line to the third bar line, then another 4 seconds will have passed. That's all I want you to understand for now. I will see you in the next video where we'll talk about more concepts around theory for drummers. Thanks for watching till the end, guys. I really appreciate your time and your attention. If you'd like to watch more Theory for Drummer videos, or you'd like to test out your theory knowledge while supporting the creation of this content, you can do so by heading over to my website, marnirasal.com/theory4drummers. Other than that, please do the usual: like, share, comment, subscribe, and make sure you click the bell icon to be notified of future videos. Thank you guys. See you at the next one.